5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm Lauren.
And I'm Ernest.
And we are L&E Explore Books.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, we are so excited to talk a little bit about what we have been reading and to get ready for the new year of reading. So first off, I want to show off these shirts we got on Black Friday from Out of Print. Mine says Reader on it, and it has a velociraptor with lots of books.
And mine says Hang and Read.
Yeah, it has a sloth on it.
Yeah, it has a sloth.
Today we have a couple of special guests who are joining us, and you can tell they're in their feelings. This is Ishmael right here, and then his brother Bendito.
Yeah.
I'm excited to share with you my books that I've been reading. So some of the books that I have read this month include The Haunting of Hill House, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, And Then There Were None, When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir. I also finished Asada Shakur's autobiography, and I'm currently reading One Day in December. So this book I would highly recommend to pretty much everyone. I think this book is an incredibly important memoir for understanding the reasoning behind Black Lives Matter. This really goes into the life of Patrice Concolers, and it is a really incredible resource talking about injustice in our medical systems, injustice through police brutality. It highlights systemic injustice against Black Americans, and I think that this book is just an incredible resource during this time, and is a book that honestly, while I was reading it, I was deeply enraged. I was very, I think frustrated is not a large enough emotion, but feelings of frustration and I think disappointment for a historical legacy of injustice. Bendito and Ishmael agree with me that This injustice is very upsetting.
Yeah, from what Lauren talked to me about as she read the book, definitely made me want to read it. And it's one of the books I'm currently reading right now, so really excited to talk more and actually some of the chapters that she went over, be able to discuss it with her more thoroughly than just my opinion. Okay.
So, my next book is Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. This is a classic mystery novel, a case of whodunit. And the book starts with 10 strangers, and as time goes on, the number of strangers becomes smaller, and the group of people on the island are trying to figure out who is the murderer. And so I think it's really thoughtful. I definitely was looking for clues throughout the work, and I always think that I'm going to figure it out. Like, I feel pretty confident, and then I do not. So I definitely recommend it. I thought it was a good, quick read. I think that this book is a great book for a potential buddy read or conversation surrounding who you think the person is. Because I think it would be interesting to see what your guesses are, maybe like 50 pages in versus 150 pages in, and seeing if maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong in the end.
Any like warnings that you would give to readers who?
Well, I mean, there is definitely
no death.
There's
murder.
definitely death. Suicide is also a warning within this work. And I think those are kind of the top pieces. A lot of death, murder. Absolutely. This next book, so this is a nonfiction book, and it's called Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. So this book is about Savannah, Georgia, and essentially this really diverse and eccentric community. And so the author goes to Savannah, Georgia, and essentially like documents for almost a decade.
Like a
various
documentary
people.
in the book?
Yeah, so
That's cool.
it's a really interesting it's a really interesting book, and I found the characters, who are like real people, to be endearing and problematic and fascinating. And I think that there were a lot of really interesting social commentaries within this work. I will note, and I've seen a little bit of critique in this, I think that there is less attention paid to Black residents within Savannah. I think that the author does include several characters who are Black, but I do think overall his work is focused on a particular case of actually murder and a murder trial. And it becomes this really juicy expose and kind of a case of, do you think that the individual was guilty? And you hear what the courts decided in that situation. Because it's interesting, because two of the characters were characters he was following beforehand and documenting their lives. And then
So it's like one dies.
there's murder.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting book. I actually, like, when I talked to a couple of friends that I was reading this, and my grandmother as well, they had all expressed that they really enjoyed this work. So if you're looking for a nonfiction work, particularly on Georgia right now, I think that that is a great option.
Thank you.
And The Haunting of Hill House. So this book has become really iconic with the Netflix series The Haunting of Hill House, which I really enjoyed. I found the work actually to be really eerie and dark in a very different way. I think that the book really focuses on internal trauma. I think this book really focuses on, who am I if who I decided that I am is no longer who I actually am. I think there's a lot of analysis of good and evil and this feeling of, I would say, like giving in or despair and feeling as though there's no way out of your options. So it's very different than the show, but I found the writing to be thoughtful and eerie. Again, this is definitely a book where it's not going to be like the horror novel that you're reading. It's very much like this. I found it creepy on an existential level, less so on like a scary, gory level. But I really enjoyed the work. I also think it's cool. So Guillermo del Toro actually does with Penguin Random House. He has like a collection of works called Penguin Horror. And he writes a little forward in this. And so he actually has a bunch of classic horror novels that he has essentially like picked out and collected and put into a collection of Penguin Horror, which I think is really cool. So I hope to read more Penguin Horror books.
I did it, guys. I finally finished one of the books I was talking to you about. And guess what? It was the shortest one. I finished Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff. I loved it. I think it's totally, if you watch the HBO show, I would say right from the beginning, because I only watched like 2 or 3 episodes. This book, the show goes a different direction than the book does. But I think that's a good way. I think it's good when they highlight how writers can be inspired by our work and then do little things to add more detail to that world. Because this book is, for the most part, a standalone book. I don't think it's a series unless the author chooses to make it or expand upon it. But I loved it. A lot of characters that are in the show are named based off of characters in the book, but some characters are gender bend to be other genders and other cultural issues that are faced in the show that are in the book itself. At first, I felt some kind of... I had issues with the book with how it expressed, almost had like a fantasy element to it. And I thought it was weird because it followed some of it could seem tropey at times. But again, it made me hesitate on the idea that why can't there be fantasy when it comes to black characters and things happening out of nowhere that expands on like black fantasy and black characters going on to these wild adventures and solving issues that we would see in like everyday like TV shows or characters that we root for in our favorite series from all expanse that happen to traditionally white characters. So it made me kind of face that kind of prejudice myself, like, oh, I wanted to be more in depth. And it made me think, like, does black characters always have to be tragic? I think a lot of as I was reading the story, I felt like I was like, oh man, something bad's going to happen. But things happen, but in a way where I feel like it made me go, I need to have hope more when I read these characters, not let the genre make my mind have perceived things that are going to happen. This book blew my expectation of how I thought it would be focused on one central character for the most part. But this book showed me how great a writer can make a whole bunch of individual characters, even people you only see for a little bit in the beginning, having their own story and ideas and beliefs be kind of brought up to the forefront. And I think Matt Ruff does a great job of elevating these characters who, I think, like the last episode was talking about how I have a difficulty when books switch characters, but in this one it felt so great, and I loved how everything came together at the very end. I highly recommend Lovecraft Country. Definitely talks about some big points I talked about in the last episode that we did when it comes to headlining, racism in America, Jim Crow laws, etc., a whole bunch of things. And I love the idea that it taking works like from H.P. Lovecraft and making it something better, making it these powerful black characters who are unestimated but can prove to be better than what you would expect. And I loved it.
Yeah, your conversation made me think about, and I think this is really important to point out, that a huge critique for black authors and for books relating to black characters as central characters is that often the books that are chosen by publication houses to be published are books that are experiences of trauma in particular. And that's what gets published, is like books particularly pertaining to racism and trauma. And that there often aren't a lot of books where blackness is allowed to just be this beautiful, joyous experience in a book. And so I think that that's something that I've really noted in my own reading, and is something I appreciate about the young adult genre in particular. I think that is a genre where joy is allowed to exist, and like there could be hard things, but ultimately the hard thing might be that you're unsure if the character you're attracted to is also attracted to you. Yeah. Like that's a very different trauma than police brutality, for example. Yeah. And I think that both of those worlds need to exist, right? Yeah. Like there would be for white characters, how there is a wide variety of experiences that include both trauma and non-trauma.
Yeah. And it makes me think that while I'm reading things to explore my own cultural identity, talking about topics that I learned very little about in school, but now want to face and kind of come to see things that I want to challenge myself and, grow and conquer my fears. I want to read books from diverse characters from different backgrounds about joy, about happiness, about things where the fantasy that we see in everyday life and our shows and movies that get these big blockbuster phenomenal things with these characters are very the same set of stars that you see highlighted but in books. And I am excited to look for those authors who aren't getting the spotlight they deserve and kind of bring it to you so you can read these books. Because I didn't know about Matt Ruff and Lovecraft Country until I saw the show. And just from reading this book, I loved it. And I thought he was a writer of something else, like 12 Monkeys, but came out, he wrote a different book called Bad Monkeys. And I just want to read his other works because right from the story from this book had me hooked. And every night before I went to bed, I was reading like 30 minutes to about an hour or 2 hours of just reading this book and just digesting it. And I haven't had that reading experience in a while, especially with me doing school and reading all these like school books. So I loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah. A book that we listened to, Asada, an autobiography by Asada Shakur. And we listened to this through Audible. Anyway, we listened to the audiobook version of it. So this book definitely has some content warnings. There is police brutality. There is murder. There is, I would say, just overall a lot of violence. There is terrorism, just incredibly complex topics. And I just found it to be such a powerful work. Asada talks a lot about her experiences within the criminal justice system and what it means for your rights when you are deemed a terrorist. Mm-hmm. And essentially how she was targeted and persecuted by our criminal justice system, by the FBI. I mean, truly like talks about these experiences that are just incredibly shocking and disturbing, but again, are, I would say, not as shocking to me as they should be. Like, it wasn't like I was like, this is totally unbelievable. It was, this is horrifying. I also found that a huge theme within this work was talking about Black liberation within America and why that struggle was so important. Asada talks about joining the Black Panther Party. She talks about her own experiences growing up and as a young woman in various situations where she was essentially trying to trying to fight against classism, racism, all of these heavy structures that were essentially causing severe trauma within Black communities. And so I found it to be just a really powerful account. And Asada is not in the United States, became a political refugee in Cuba, and talks also a little bit about that experience. And so it just was a really powerful autobiography, and I definitely would recommend the work.
Yeah, I deeply enjoyed this book. It really made me, with the parts of us, Asada going to her trial, talking about our court system, really made me want to look more into that and read more books about our justice system. Because currently I've been watching documentaries and this book that just talk about when you are persecuted for crimes, and for trials, either it being speedy or just going a traditional route. When it's declared a mistrial, the prosecuting usually just go, okay, we're going to keep going until we get our verdict that we want. Ultimately want is guilty. And how we, our legal system kind of leans more to what can the prosecuting team do to narrow the evidence to suit their needs to get the person guilty or not. And I think this book made me realize some things about how I can see the whole justice system. I loved Asada's autobiography. I think it's a very powerful tale from a very strong, powerful Black woman about her experience in America and things that, and these freedom fighters who really brought all these great things to our world now. I think reading this book along with listening to this book along with reading Lovecraft Country, maybe there's a part that highlighted, especially what I'm currently reading right now with When They Call You a Terrorist, about the importance of what the Black Panthers did and their party represented with giving free food, breakfast to children in impoverished communities and stuff, and having them have lunch and food at school. That eventually became free and reduced programs in schools across America, and how we don't really talk about how the Black Panthers alienated that, highlighted that example, and made that something now that we see in everyday life. And I think America has painted a picture of the Black Panthers, at least in where I was growing up in school, of them being like bad extremists. And I think there's a lot of things that we don't know. And the only way for you to find that out as a person is to read about these characters, read about their experience, and just expand your own knowledge before you hold blame and judgment on people. And don't just take what the person in power is saying.
Okay, now we're going to go into our current reads.
Current reads.
Yes. So currently, I'm laughing. I love cheesy Christmas movies. Like, I love them in a way, though, where I'm hypercritical, and I definitely denote all of the things I find problematic about them. So something that we have been doing is watching a different holiday movie every day, and it has been really fascinating. The book that I am reading is called One Day in December. I'm actually reading this because of a book club that's being hosted on Bookstagram. And so I am really excited to share a little bit because I'm almost done. I think I'm about 80% done now. So the premise of this book are that there are two main characters, Lori and Jack. Lori and Jack see each other. She is on a train and he's outside, and they look at each other and there's just a spark. There's something there. He tries to get on the train and he doesn't. And so she's like, I have to find him. And her best friend Sarah is there with her, is like, we're going to find this guy. And so it's a long time. I mean, they literally are looking for him everywhere they go, and they don't find him. And then one day, Sarah introduces Lori to her new boyfriend.
Is it like a year, or is it?
It's about a year. Okay. Yeah. I think ish, not completely, but anyway. Yeah, no, it's not the next day. Anyway, this story is about what happens with the three of them in a 10-year timeline. And so it's really talking about different choices. It's talking about, is true love at first sight? It's talking about different connections and different types of love. Love as a friend, love as a partner. I think pining love too, or love as an ideal. Like I think that when you're not actually with someone, you can create an idealized version of love that might not be the actual reality if you were together. And so I was really thinking that this was going to be really like cheesy and just like not. I don't typically read kind of this type of holiday romance book, and I love it. I think it's complex, and I think the characters are relatable. And overall, I've found the story to be really engaging. Like, I was sitting here before this video and I was trying to get in a couple more pages to see what was happening next. So it's definitely a good December read, but honestly, I think you could read it pretty much any time of year because it doesn't just talk about December. It talks about like years and different timelines. I also like that you hear the story from Lori and Jack's perspective. What are you currently reading?
I'm still, now that I'm done with my quarter school, I am back reading Imaginary Friends. That is a thick tome. So, like
10
Lovecraft
years later.
Country, you will see it you'll see it when I'm celebrating one of these episodes. I actually decided to read, When They Call You a Terrorist from Lauren's great recommendation. I'm loving this book. I think it's powerful hearing about how the Black Lives Matter group started and what inspired it. I am very early in it compared to like how Lauren is in the book that she was just talking about that she's beasting and feasting through. But I'm just excited to kind of learn about these books and I love books. One thing I do love about books like this is when they tell you about other books that inspired these creators and these writers and and they don't do it in like a way of saying all recommendations, but they said these are books that I read at my childhood that really had an impact on me, and it immediately makes me go, let me look at that book. So I definitely love it. I love because there's so many books out there that I don't know about that are highly recommended unless like I go looking for Google searches and streams. But I love how books can thoroughly put in details of things about books that inspired them, that held such a part in their life, that helped them be who the person they are today. And I'm excited to just be reading When They Call You a Terrorist. Now we're going to move on to the book that we are reading together.
I don't know why we did this strange gesture.
Like
that was, I don't know. We'll work on that. Hands the wrong book over.
The wrong book.
So, one of my favorite series of all time is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. And I've been talking to Ernest about this series for a long time. I literally last year read it actually this time frame, like December, because I read it over break, my holiday break, and I seriously woke Ernest up several times because I was so excited about scenes that I was like, I have to talk to someone about this. And so he has some weird background knowledge on the book. So we are starting with the novella, which comes before the first novel. So it's called The Assassin's Blade. And it's been really fun. We've been reading it aloud in various voices. So we'll both read for characters on different pages. And I think that makes it a lot of fun, and it makes you focus more because you're waiting to see when you're reading next. Yes. And we're about 100 pages in at this point, and I've just really enjoyed it. And I keep asking Ernest, like, what are your thoughts? What do you think? And it's fun rereading it because there's a lot of information. Sarah J. Maas does a good job of, like, building up to information in later books, and that I didn't notice the first time because I was too focused on, like, big details.
Yeah. This book has been exciting, just reading it with Lauren. I love us doing voices for the characters. In the beginning, I was doing like some terrible voices. Getting better, but reading aloud has really been great for me because by this time next year, I will hopefully be in a classroom teaching and reading aloud to my students. So having this practice with Lauren has been just great and fun and exciting, especially how talented Lauren is with doing British voices.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to claim that.
I think it's good. I think it's great.
I don't know if I'm claiming that. But.
And I just love going through the series with her. I don't think we're going to beast like Lauren did. Like, she's read these books.
I read them in like a week.
She finished over break. So imagine what you would do on a break, and Lauren was in it. So, but we're every night, just like we're doing our movies, we're reading almost like 4 or 5 chapters a night. So we've been going through it pretty fast. Yeah. And I'm enjoying this high fantasy about this. Yes.
So that is really exciting. So for finishing out this year, we're planning to do a video at the end of this month of our favorite books for the year. we also are trying to finish our reading challenges. So,
Yes.
Ernest, what is your reading challenge?
My
for the
reading
year?
challenge was to read 50 books in 2020.
And how far are you in your reading challenge?
First of all, I blame the pandemic. How dare it? I am at 33 books currently. I have a lot of books to read. My goal was hopefully get to at least 40, to be honest, because we're in December now, and how my reading has been, yeah, 40 would be great. I don't think I'd make the 50, but I do somehow. It would be due to reading with Lauren and audiobooks. So,
Do you think you'll keep the same goal for next year?
next year. Actually, next year, because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to lower myself. I'm going to still aim for the 50, but I'm going to be more on it and having a more pristine schedule. And I think, like we talked about when we first started doing this booktube, of having this has made reading more fun for me, because it almost gives me a sense of having like a book club, that I am expected to have this book kind of completed in a week or 2 weeks to talk about it and share with my friends, and hopefully get other people to either read the book or recommend me other books that I might like because of books I've read. Yeah. What about you? How's your go?
So my goal was 100 books for this year. It has been my goal the past couple of years. I have never made it to 100 books, but so far I am at 82 books, which is how many books I read last year. So I've already beat my last year, which was like my highest total of books. And so I will continue to keep my goal at 100, but my hope is to get to at least 90 books. I would love to get like 5 or 6, well, more than 5 or 6, I guess, like
You're at 82?
7, 8 books, 8 more books read by the end of this month. And so, yeah, well, we're really excited. It's so good to share with y'all. Please let us know if you have any questions about books. We also would love, if you have a book you're super hyped about, we'd love to ask you questions. We'd love to do buddy reads. So we're really open to all of the above. This new year, we're going to have some new ideas for our booktube as well.
Yeah.
And so we are just thankful to be sharing with y'all. We hope that you have a wonderful week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.